Chapter 1. The Bargain in Blood. The village square smelled of burning thatch and fear. Saren pressed herself against the cold stone wall of the magistrate's hall, her breath forming ghosts in the November air. Smoke twisted skyward from her father's shop, the apothecary that had been her family's lifeblood for 3 generations, now reduced to embers and accusations. Witchcraft, they'd whispered. Dark remedies. Her father's kindness had been mistaken for malice when the Baron's son died despite his tinctures. She was 10 years old, and she understood that kindness was the first thing the world took from you. There. A guard's voice cut through the chaos. The apothecary's daughter. Saren ran. The cobblestones were slick with evening rain. Her worn boots skidded as she turned into the alley behind the tanner's shop, lungs burning, heart a frantic drum against her ribs. Behind her, heavy footsteps and the rattle of weapons. They would catch her. They would put her in the stocks. Or, worse, the pyre. Her father had narrowly escaped by dying of heartbreak 3 days prior. The alley ended in a wall. "Please," she whispered to the darkness. To God, to anyone who might listen. The darkness answered. A door she'd never noticed before opened in the stone, revealing a staircase descending into absolute black. The air that breathed out smelled of old incense and older secrets. Every instinct screamed danger, but behind her, the guards were closing in. She descended. The stairs spiraled down, down, down far deeper than any building's cellar should go. The stone walls wept moisture. Somewhere in the depths, water dripped with metronomic patience. The temperature dropped with each step, until her breath became visible again, crystalline in the faint luminescence that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. At the bottom, a chamber. It was circular, carved from living rock, lit by candles that burned without melting. Shelves lined the walls, holding books bound in, leather and metal, jars containing things she didn't want to examine too closely. In the center of the room stood a table of black wood, and behind it, a figure. He was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Tall, impossibly so, dressed in clothes from another century, velvet the color of dried blood, silver fastenings that caught the candlelight. His hair fell past his shoulders, black as the spaces between stars. But it was his face that stole her breath. Sharp-boned and perfect, ageless in a way that made her think of marble statues in churches, of angels cast down for loving too fiercely. His eyes were silver gray, ancient and sad. "You're running," he said. His voice was like smoke and silk, accented with languages she didn't recognize. "From what?" "Everything," Saren whispered. He studied her with an intensity that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. Above them, muffled through stone, she heard the guards shouting, searching. "They'll kill you if they find you," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "Yes, I can prevent that." He moved around the table with inhuman grace. "But my protection requires payment." "I have nothing." Her voice cracked. "They took everything. Burned it. You have time." He crouched before her, bringing his face level with hers. This close, she could see the shadows beneath his eyes, the way the candlelight didn't quite reflect in his pupils. 8 years of it. Give me your future, the years between now and your 18th birthday, and I'll give you safety, a home, knowledge. "What are you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. His smile was gentle and terrible. "Something very old, something bound by contracts older than your kingdom." He extended one pale hand. 8 years, little apothecary. "Your future for my past. On your 18th birthday, the bargain ends. You'll be free, and I." He paused, something flickering across his face. "Grief, perhaps, or resignation. I'll remember only your name. Why? Because that's the curse I carry. 8 years is all I can hold before the memories begin to fade. I've lived centuries, child, and I remember almost none of it. Only names remain names, and the feeling that something mattered. Once." Above, the guards were closer. Wood splintered, they were breaking down doors. Saren looked at his outstretched hand. She thought of her father's face as they dragged him to the magistrate. Thought of the flames licking at her family's legacy. Thought of being alone, hunted, helpless. She placed her small hand in his. His skin was cool as marble, and the moment their palms touched, something shifted in the air. The candles flared white bright. Pain lanced through her wrist, sharp and burning, and when she looked down, a mark had appeared on her skin. A symbol like intertwined thorns forming a circle. "Saren," he said softly, reading something she couldn't see. Your name is Saren Grey. What's yours? He stood, drawing her up with, Theron. Ashwood. Remember it, little one. In 8 years, you'll need to remind me who I was to you. The door at the top of the stairs shattered. Torchlight spilled down the spiral. Theron moved between Saren and the staircase, his posture shifting into something predatory. Go through the passage behind the bookshelf, he said, his voice different now, colder, harder. Follow the tunnel until you reach the manor. Tell Margot that the master has invoked the old contract. She'll understand. What about you? He glanced back at her, and for just a moment, the sadness in his eyes was overwhelming. I've faced worse than frightened men with torches, Saren Grey. Now run! She ran. The bookshelf swung aside at her touch, revealing another passage. As she fled into the darkness, she heard shouting behind her, then a sound like wind through a crypt, then silence sudden and complete. The tunnel seemed endless, but eventually, she emerged into a stone cellar that smelled of wine and age. Stairs led upward to a door. Beyond it, she found herself in a manor house that belonged in storybooks. Everything was elegant. Decay tapestries faded to ghosts of their former colors, furniture shrouded in dust covers, windows tall and narrow as knife wounds. The floors were marble, the ceilings vanished into shadow, and in the entrance hall, standing beneath a portrait of a man who looked disturbingly like Theron, was a woman. She was perhaps 40, dressed in severe black, her gray-streaked hair pulled back from a face that might have been kind before time, and sorrow carved lines into it. The master sent you, she said. Not a question. Saren nodded, holding up her wrist to show the mark. The woman Margot studied the symbol, and something in her expression softened. 8 years, she murmured. He hasn't made that bargain in 2 lifetimes. She extended a hand. Come, child. You look half frozen and wholly terrified. Let's get you warm and fed. There will be time enough for explanations. As Margot led her deeper into the manor, Saren glanced back at the entrance. Through the tall windows, she could see the village in the distance, see the smoke still rising from what had been her home, and she wondered what price she'd truly paid, and whether 8 years would be enough to prepare her for the moment when the vampire who'd saved her life forgot everything but her name. Chapter 2. The House of Fading Names. The manor existed in perpetual twilight. Even at midday, the windows seemed to swallow sunlight rather than admit it. Saren learned to navigate by candlelight, her footsteps echoing through halls that stretched longer than geometry should allow. For 3 days, she saw no sign of Theron, only Margot, who brought her meals in her room and spoke in gentle, measured tones about nothing important. The room itself was beautiful in its abandonment. A 4-poster bed draped in moth-eaten velvet, a wardrobe filled with dresses decades out of fashion, a writing desk positioned before a window that overlooked gardens gone to wild beauty. Everything smelled faintly of lavender and dust. On the 4th evening, restlessness drove Saren from her sanctuary. She descended the main staircase with careful steps, trailing her hand along the banister worn smooth by centuries of touch. The manor breathed around her settling boards, distant drafts, the sense of presence without form. Above her head, portrait eyes followed her progress. Stern men in ruffs and doublets, women in pearls and painted smiles. They all had Theron's eyes. Curious creature, aren't you? Saren spun, heart leaping. Theron stood in the doorway of what appeared to be a library, silhouetted against the amber glow of a fire. He'd changed his clothes, now dressed in a simple white shirt and dark trousers that made him look more human, though no less devastating. His hair was tied back, revealing the sharp angles of his face. I'm sorry, Saren said quickly. Margot didn't say I couldn't explore. Margot knows better than to cage curious minds. He stepped aside, gesturing to the library. Come. If you're going to wander, you might as well have company. The library was vast, 2 stories of shelves climbing toward a ceiling painted with faded constellations. The fire crackled in a hearth large enough to stand in, and before it, 2 wing-backed chairs faced each other across a low table. The room smelled of old paper and wood smoke and something else, something metallic and sweet, that made Saren's stomach flutter with undefined anxiety. Blood, she realized. The room smelled faintly of blood. Theron noticed her hesitation. I don't hurt children, he said quietly. The scent is from my supper. Margot procures what I need from the village butcher. Pig's blood, mostly. Not as satisfying as other sources, but sufficient. You're really a vampire. Saren spoke the word for the first time, tasting its weight. I am really very old, and very tired, and very bound by rules I barely remember making. He settled into one of the chairs with liquid grace. Sit. You must have questions. She did. Hundreds of them. But as she perched on the edge of the opposite chair, only one emerged. Why did you save me? Because I saw something familiar in your eyes. Desperation, grief, the understanding that the world takes more than it gives. His gaze drifted to the fire. And because every 8 years, I try to hold on to something. Someone. I try to make a memory that might linger when all the others fade to names in ledgers. The curse, Saren said. You said you forget. Everything but names. At first, I thought it was mercy, a way to survive eternity without the weight of centuries crushing me. But I've come to understand it's the cruelest punishment. To know I've lived, loved, lost, learned, and remember none of it. To wake every cycle reaching for ghosts I can't recall. He looked at her then, and the ancient sorrow in his eyes made her chest ache. I have journals, hundreds of them, thousands of pages of handwriting I know is mine, describing people and places and feelings I cannot access. I read my own life like a stranger's history. How did it happen? The curse? I don't remember. His lips quirked in a humorless smile. Ironic, isn't it? Margot knows she's been with me for 30 years, seen 3 cycles through, but she won't tell me. Says I always discover it the same way, always make the same realizations. She says forcing the knowledge early only brings me pain. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows, a sound like whispered secrets. What happens in 8 years? Saren asked. When the bargain ends? You'll be free. The mark will fade. You'll go back to the world with the knowledge I've given you. I assume I'll teach you something. I usually do, and He paused. I'll wake one morning with your name echoing in my mind, grasping for 4 memories that aren't there, wondering who Saren Grey was and why her name feels like grief. That's horrible. That's immortality. He rose, moving to the shelves and selecting a book without looking. But for now, you're here, safe. And I have time to be whoever I need to be for you, teacher, guardian, friend. He returned, holding out the volume. Do you read? My father taught me. Good. Then we'll start your education properly tomorrow. Herb lore, alchemical theory, the pharmacological properties of rare botanicals, all the knowledge your father's persecutors feared. His expression softened. I may forget you, Saren, but I can ensure you're never helpless again. She took the book, its leather cover warm from his touch, and felt something shift inside her. Not gratitude exactly, though that was part of it. Something deeper. Trust, perhaps, or the fragile beginning of it. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We have 8 years ahead of us, little apothecary. 8 years to fill with memories I won't keep and knowledge you will. He turned back to the fire, his profile sharp against the flames. Just promise me one thing. What? When the 8 years end, when you tell me your name and I don't remember anything else, don't let me see pity in your eyes. I couldn't bear that. Saren clutched the book to her chest, feeling the mark on her wrist pulse with faint warmth. I promise. Thunder rolled across the manor, and in its wake, the candles throughout the library flickered and steadied. Theron stood silhouetted against the fire, immortal and isolated, and Saren wondered if 8 years would be enough to understand him, or if understanding him would make the forgetting that much worse. Chapter 3. Blood and Boundaries. Time moved strangely in the manor. Days bled into weeks, marked only by lessons and the slow turning of seasons beyond the windows. Saren learned that Theron was a meticulous teacher, patient with her struggles, exacting with her successes. They spent mornings in his laboratory, a stone chamber beneath the manor, where glass apparatus caught the candlelight like captured stars. He taught her to distill essences from wolfsbane and nightshade, to measure silver nitrate with precision, to recognize the difference between healing and poison by scent alone. His hands, cool and steady, would guide hers through delicate procedures, and she'd feel the centuries in his touch. Medicine and poison are sisters, he told her one winter afternoon as she ground dried hemlock in a mortar. The difference lies in dosage, intent, and understanding. Your father knew this. The village feared what it couldn't comprehend. They feared you too, Saren said. She was 12 now, taller, less frightened of the darkness, with reason. Theron measured crimson liquid into a vial blood, though from what source, she'd learned not to ask. I am dangerous, Saren. Never forget that. But he didn't feel dangerous, not when he explained the Ptolemaic theory of humors with genuine enthusiasm, or when he corrected her Latin pronunciation with amusement rather than impatience. Not when she found him in the library at dawn, surrounded by his journals, searching for someone he couldn't remember. Still, she saw glimpses. The way his eyes tracked her pulse when she cut herself on broken glass. The careful distance he maintained between them, never touching more than necessary. The nights when she heard him pacing the halls, restless and hungry, and knew Margot had been delayed procuring his sustenance. One evening, curiosity overcame caution. "Does it hurt?" Saren asked. They were in the conservatory, a glass-roofed room where Theron cultivated rare specimens. Moonlight turned the space silver blue. The hunger? His hands stilled on the oleander he'd been transplanting. Yes. Like starving? Worse. Imagine every part of you screaming for something you've forbidden yourself. Imagine smelling what you need on, the air warm, vital, alive, and knowing one moment of weakness could destroy something precious. He set down the plant with excessive care. "It's why I keep distance, why Margot screens my visitors, why I never should have brought you here. But you did. I did." He turned to face her, dirt smudging his hands, making him look almost mortal. "And now I have 6 years left to keep you safe from myself. I'm not afraid of you. You should be." The words came out harsh. "You're 13, Saren. Your blood sings to me. Every time you laugh, every time your heart races from running through the halls, I hear it. I want it. The only thing stopping me is what I've cultivated over centuries I can't remember." The confession hung between them like smoke. Outside, an owl called a lonely sound in the darkness. "Then I'll be more careful," Saren said finally. "I'll help you. Tell me what makes it worse, and I'll avoid it." Something crossed his face, surprise. Perhaps, or something more. Fragile. "You're not angry? Frightened? You saved my life. You've given me knowledge, safety, purpose. If being careful helps you, then that's a small price." She stepped closer, cautious but deliberate. "Besides, you've had 6 years to hurt me. You haven't. That means something. You have far too much faith in my restraint, or I understand you better than you think." For a long moment, Theron simply looked at her, really looked, as if trying to memorize something he knew he'd lose. Then he smiled, small and sad. "You're growing up stubborn. I learned from the best." He laughed. The sound startled out of him, and the tension shattered. "Minx, come. Help me finish this before the moon sets. Oleander requires transplanting under lunar influence, and I'm running out of time." They worked in companionable silence, dirt under their nails, moon shadow painting them both in shades of pearl. And Saren thought that maybe this was what trust felt like, not the absence of fear, but the conscious choice to stand close to danger because you believed in its control. She didn't notice Theron's hands trembling as he worked. Didn't see the way his jaw clenched when she laughed at a joke he made. Didn't understand that 6 years suddenly felt impossibly short and devastatingly long in equal measure. Chapter 4. Silver and Storm. The attack came on Saren's 15th birthday. She woke to the sound of breaking glass, sharp and violent in the pre-dawn darkness. For a disoriented moment, she thought she'd dreamed it. Then came the shouting. Saren threw off her blankets, heart hammering, and ran to the window. Below in the courtyard, figures moved between the overgrown hedges. Torchlight, the glint of weapons, at least 6 men, maybe more, all converging on the manor's entrance. Hunters. She recognized the symbols on their cloaks, the same holy orders that burned witches, that tracked creatures of darkness across kingdoms. Someone had found them. "Theron," she whispered, and ran. The halls were chaos. Margot appeared from a side passage, her face grim, a iron poker gripped in both hands. "Get to the cellar," she commanded. "The tunnel. Not without Theron. He can handle—" An explosion shook the manor. Downstairs, the front door splintered inward. Men poured through, bearing silver-tipped crossbows and vials of holy water. Their leader, a scarred man in priest's robes, held a relic that pulsed with sickly light. "In the name of the Eternal Church, we purge this abomination," he bellowed. Theron appeared at the top of the stairs. He moved like water, like shadow, faster than Saren's eyes could track. 2 hunters fell before they could scream, their weapons clattering uselessly. But there were too many. A crossbow bolt caught Theron's shoulder, and he hissed pain or fury. She couldn't tell. Silver. The bolt was silver. He stumbled. "No." Saren didn't think. She grabbed a heavy candelabra from the hall table and hurled it at the nearest hunter. It struck his head with a sickening crack. He went down. The priest's eyes found her. The girl, she bears his mark. Kill her too. 2 hunters turned toward the stairs, toward her. Theron moved between them with inhuman speed, and this time, there was nothing restrained about him. He was a force of nature, all fang and fury, and the hunters fell like wheat before a scythe. But more kept coming. The priest was chanting now, his relic blazing brighter, and wherever its light touched, Theron flinched back. Holy fire! Margot, get her out! Theron shouted, wrenching the silver bolt from his shoulder. Dark blood, almost black, streamed down his arm. I'm not leaving you. That's not a request. His eyes flashed red the first time she'd seen them change, and in that moment, Saren finally understood what he truly was, what he'd been holding back every day for 6 years. Margot grabbed her arm, dragging her backward. He'll survive this. You won't. They fled through the servants' corridors, Margot moving with surprising speed for her age. Behind them, the sounds of battle crashes, screams, the priest's relentless chanting. The manor shuddered like a wounded beast. They reached the cellar just as the ceiling above them groaned. Margot shoved Saren toward the tunnel entrance. Go. I'll seal it behind you. What about, he'll find you. He always finds what matters. Now run, girl. Saren ran. The tunnel was black as pitch, but she knew it now, had explored it countless times in forbidden midnight adventures. Her hands found the walls, guiding her through twists and turns, down and down into the earth's heart. Behind her, she heard the grinding of stone as Margot sealed the entrance. She emerged in the hidden chamber where she'd first met Theron. 6 years ago. An eternity. The room was exactly as she remembered. Circular, candle-lit, filled with books and secrets. But now she saw what she'd missed before: symbols carved into the floor, words and languages, older than Latin. A circle of salt and silver encompassing the entire space. A sanctuary. A trap. She couldn't tell which. Saren paced, counting heartbeats, each one screaming, "Go back, help him, don't leave him alone." But Margot's words echoed. He'll find you. He always finds what matters. An hour passed, then another. Dawn must have broken above, though no light reached this deep. Finally, the door opened. Theron stood in the threshold, and Saren's breath caught. His shirt was torn, soaked with blood, his own and others. The silver burn on his shoulder had left his skin blistered, gray. He swayed, catching himself against the doorframe. Saren. Her name was a gasp of relief. She was across the room in seconds, catching him as he collapsed. He was heavy, cold, and terribly solid. I'm here. You're safe. We're both safe. The hunters? Dead or fled, Margot made sure. He closed his eyes, and in the candlelight, he looked ancient and exhausted. They knew. Someone told them about the bargain. They wanted to save you from me. I don't need saving. His laugh was bitter. Don't you? He opened his eyes, and they were still faintly red around the edges. I killed 7 men tonight, Saren. Tore them apart without hesitation. This is what I am beneath the gentleman scholar. This is what I'll always be. You protected me, protected your home. That's not wrong, isn't it? He reached up with a blood-stained hand and touched her face, the first time he'd touched her so intimately. His fingers were ice against her flushed skin. I'm a monster who's teaching a child alchemy. I'm a curse who made a bargain he'll forget. Nothing about this is right. Then why does it feel right? The words escaped before she could stop them. Why do I feel safer with you, a vampire, a killer, than I ever did with anyone in that village? Because you're 15 and don't know better. I'm 15 and know exactly what I'm choosing. Something shifted in his expression, pain and longing and desperate restraint. For one breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pulled away, putting careful distance between them. 3 years, he said hoarsely. 3 years until the bargain ends. Until you're free of me. What if I don't want to be free? Then I'll make you want it. He stood, unsteady but determined. Because in 3 years, I won't remember why that would break both our hearts. He left her there, alone in the chamber where their bargain began, and Serene touched her face where his hand had been, feeling the ghost of frost on her skin. Above them, in the ruins of the manor, dawn painted the destruction gold. Chapter 5. Confessions in Candlelight. They rebuilt in silence. The manor's west wing had burned Hunter's fire, holy and thorough. Margot coordinated repairs with grim efficiency, hiring workers from 3 villages away who asked no questions. Theron retreated to his laboratory, emerging only to teach Saren, or to brood in the library until dawn. The distance between them had become a physical thing, careful and aching. Saren threw herself into her studies. She was 16 now, no longer a child to be protected. She mastered compound fractures of mercury, memorized every poisonous plant in 3 kingdoms, could diagnose blood fever from scent alone. Knowledge became armor against the silence. But at night, she lay awake in her repaired room and remembered the weight of Theron's hand against her face, the red in his eyes, the way he'd called her name like a prayer and a curse. Autumn came, painting the gardens in shades of dying beauty. One evening, Saren found Theron in the conservatory, standing before a oleander that had bloomed despite the season. He looked different, thinner somehow, though vampires didn't thin. Tired, though they didn't tire. He'd been feeding less, she realized. Margot's worried whispers confirmed it. "You're avoiding me," Saren said. He didn't turn. "I'm maintaining appropriate boundaries. You're starving yourself. I'm being careful. You're being afraid." She moved closer, her reflection ghosting beside his in the glass walls. "The attack was months ago. The hunters are gone. You don't have to push me away anymore, don't I?" He finally looked at her, and the anguish in his face stole her breath. "You're 16, Saren. Nearly 17. You've grown into someone He stopped, jaw clenching. "Someone whose blood calls to me in ways that have nothing to do with hunger. Someone I think about in ways that shame me. So yes, I'm maintaining distance, because the alternative terrifies me. Why? Because I'm 193 years old, and you're a child I swore to protect. I stopped being a child the night I watched you kill 7 men to save me." Her voice cracked. "I stopped being a child every time I ground hemlock and knew exactly how much would kill versus heal. I stopped being a child when I chose to stay. Here, with you. Knowing what you are. That doesn't make this right. What's this?" She stepped closer, deliberate. "Name it. Say what you're so afraid of." The silence stretched taut as wire. "I care for you," Theron whispered finally. "Far more than I should. More than guardian to ward. More than teacher to student. I look at you and He closed his eyes. "In 2 years, I'll forget you. Forget this. And you'll be free to live without the weight of an immortal's inappropriate affection. That's how this should end. What if I don't want that ending? What you want doesn't matter. You're 17 years old. Nearly 17. And I'm a creature who feeds on life to sustain my own cursed existence. There's no version of this that isn't grotesque." Saren reached for his hand. He jerked back as if burned. "Don't," he said roughly. "Don't make this harder. It's already hard. You made it hard when you saved me, when you taught me, when you looked at me like I mattered." Tears pricked her eyes, angry, frustrated tears. "You don't get to care about me for 7 years and then pretend it means nothing because suddenly I'm old enough to care back. That's exactly why I have to stop." He turned away, shoulders rigid. "Because you're old enough to care back. Old enough to make mistakes that will haunt you. And I won't let my curse become yours. Too late." She held up her wrist, showing the mark that had never faded. "I've been marked by you for 7 years. I've lived in your house, learned your secrets, chosen you every single day. If that's not a curse, it's the closest thing to a blessing I've ever known." "Saren, 1 year." She spoke over him, voice steadying. "You have 1 year left before you forget me. 1 year to decide if pushing me away is what you really want. And if it is, fine. I'll leave when the bargain ends. But don't lie to me. Don't pretend this is about protection when it's really about fear." She left him there, standing among his poisonous, beautiful flowers, and didn't look back. But she heard it soft enough that human ears would miss it. "Forgive me." Chapter 6. The Truth in Thorns. Winter came harsh that year, ice coating the manor's windows in fractal patterns. Saren turned 17 in a snowstorm, marked only by Margot's quiet gift of a leather journal and Theron's absence. He was avoiding her again. Different this time, not distance for safety's sake, but genuine withdrawal. She saw him only during lessons, which had become terse, perfunctory. The easy companionship they'd shared for 7 years had frozen over. It hurt more than she'd expected. "Give him time," Margot said one afternoon, finding Saren staring out her window at the snow-choked gardens. "He's fighting himself. That's never pretty to witness. Does he fight himself every cycle?" Margot's silence was answer enough. "Tell me about the others," Saren pressed. "The people before me. The names he wrote down and forgot. That's not my story to tell, please. I need to understand what happens when the 8 years end. The older woman sighed, settling into the window seat beside her. I've been with him for 30 years. 3 cycles, 3 people he's tried to hold on to. The first was a scholar young man with consumption. Brilliant mind. Theron gave him 8 years of health, taught him everything. When the time ended, the boy left. Theron woke the next day asking Margot who Christopher was and why the name made him weep. Saren's chest tightened. And the second? A girl not unlike you. Orphaned, clever, kind. Theron adored her platonically, carefully. She married at 23, visited often. Brought her children to meet the strange lord who'd saved her. But the older she got, the harder it became. Watching him stay young while she aged. When she died at 70, Theron mourned without understanding why. All he had was her name, Alice. That's cruel. That's the curse. Margot's gaze was distant. He's tried to break it. Spent years researching, chasing rumors. The only thing he's learned is that it's tied to his original transgression, whatever sin or bargain made him vampire in the first place. Until he remembers and atones for that, the forgetting continues. But he can't remember to atone, precisely. Margot stood, brushing snow from the windowsill. So he makes these bargains, tries to hold on to people, tries to matter to someone before the slate wipes clean. It's heartbreak on an installment plan. Is that what I am to him? An installment of grief? You're more than that. I've seen all 3 cycles, child, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Margot's expression softened. Which is why he's running. Because this time, the forgetting won't just hurt him. That night, Saren dreamed of thorns, great spiraling vines wrapping around a castle, around a man who couldn't remember why he was trapped. She woke with a plan forming, fragile and desperate. The library held Theron's journals, leather-bound volumes spanning 2 centuries, meticulously organized by date. She'd been forbidden from reading them, but Theron was in the village with Margot, procuring supplies. She had hours. The earliest journals were sparse, clinical, fed, hunted, survived. But as the decades progressed, the entries grew more philosophical, more anguished. She found references to the curse. I know I had a sister. The name Margaret haunts me, but her face is smoke. Did I fail her? Is that why I'm damned? 80 years since my last clear memory. I'm a ghost haunting my own existence. Met a boy today. Consumption. Brilliant. Made a bargain. 8 years. Perhaps this time I'll remember something that matters. She found Christopher's cycle pages filled with chemistry formulas, jokes, observations. Then, he left today. I know he mattered. I feel the shape of loss. But his face, his voice, his significance, gone. Only his name remains, carved into my heart like a scar I can't explain. Alice's journals were gentler, filled with watercolor sketches and pressed flowers. Her wedding day, I'm happy for her, I think. The joy feels secondhand, like I'm reading someone else's story. And then, 40 pages from the end, she found her own name. Saren Gray, 10 years old, terrified, brilliant. I've made the bargain again. 8 years. God help me. I hope I'm strong enough not to fail her. The entries continued, charting her growth. She laughs like bells. Dangerous thought. She's a child. 16 today. When did she become so? I need to stop writing. This helps nothing. 7 years gone. 1 remaining. I'm terrified of forgetting her. More terrified of remembering this feeling when she's 30 and I'm still frozen at 32. This is why the curse exists, to protect people like her from creatures like me. The final entry was dated yesterday. 1 year left. I should send her away, give her freedom before the bargain ends. But I'm selfish and cruel, and I want every remaining moment, even though I know they'll torture me later in the form of her name echoing through my empty mind. I love her. God forgive me. I love her. And in 1 year, I won't remember why that makes me want to walk into sunlight and end this endless cycle of beautiful, forgotten things. Saren closed the journal with shaking hands. The truth settled over her like snow. He wasn't pushing her away to protect her. He was pushing her away to protect himself from the agony of forgetting someone he loved. Chapter 7. Moonlight and Medicine. The revelation changed everything and nothing. Saren spent days processing what she'd read, guilt warring with determination. She'd invaded his privacy, read his most intimate thoughts, but she'd also found the truth he'd been too afraid to speak. This wasn't about propriety or age or danger. It was about a man terrified of inflicting pain he wouldn't remember causing. Spring came gradually, melting the winter's harshness. Saren turned 18 in April, marked by Margot's knowing looks and Theron's continued absence. The bargain had 6 months remaining, 6 months until she'd be free to leave, and he'd be free to forget, unless she stopped running from what they'd both been avoiding. She found him in the conservatory one evening, transplanting wolfsbane beneath the full moon's light. His hands were covered in soil and poison, and he looked ethereally beautiful, dangerous and damaged and desperately lonely. "I read your journals," she said without preamble. His hand stilled. That was forbidden. Most worthwhile things are. She stepped closer, heart hammering. "You love me. Saren, don't deny it. You wrote it yourself. 6 days ago. I love her." She circled the table between them, deliberate. "You've loved me for months, maybe longer. And you've been torturing yourself because you think loving me is selfish. Wrong. It is wrong. Why? Because you're immortal? Because you're a vampire? Because you'll forget?" She stopped an arm's length away. "Those are reasons it's tragic, Theron. Not reasons it's wrong. You're 18, and you're 193, and in 6 months, that won't matter because you won't remember we had this conversation." Her voice cracked. "So tell me, is it wrong for me to love you back? Is it selfish to want 6 months of truth before you forget everything?" The silence was broken only by their breathing. Hers quick, his unnecessary but present. "You can't love me," Theron said finally roughly. "You're conflating gratitude with affection. I saved you, taught you. You think what you feel is love, but it's, don't patronize me." Anger flared, clean and bright. "I've had 8 years to understand my feelings. I'm not confused. I'm not misguided. I love you not because you saved me, but because you're kind and brilliant, and so desperately afraid of hurting people that you hurt yourself instead. I love you because you taught me that medicine and poison are sisters, because you laugh at my terrible jokes, because you look at the sunrise like it might kill you but you can't look away." "It will kill me," he said absurdly. "I know. That's why we have the conservatory roof." She took the final step, closing the distance. 6 months, Theron. Give me 6 months of honesty. Let me love you. Let yourself love me back. And when the bargain ends, if you forget me," her voice broke, "at least I'll remember. At least I'll know it was real. It'll destroy you, watching me forget. Maybe, but not trying will destroy us both." She reached for his hand, the one covered in poison and earth, and this time, he didn't pull away. His fingers closed around hers, trembling, and she felt the coolness of his skin, the centuries of loneliness, the desperate restraint finally cracking. "I don't want to hurt you," he whispered. "Too late. You already have. Every time you pushed me away. Every time you pretended not to care." She brought his hand to her face, pressing his palm to her cheek. "Stop hurting us both. Please." For a long moment Theron simply stood there, frozen between want and fear. Then something in him broke. He pulled her close with inhuman speed, burying his face in her hair, his body shaking with emotion he'd suppressed for months. 6 months, he said against her temple. "God help me, Saren. 6 months. 6 months." She agreed. They stood there in the moonlight, wrapped in each other, two impossible creatures defying time and curse and common sense. Outside, the spring wind carried the scent of wolfsbane and promise, and somewhere in the manor, a clock struck midnight. 6 months until freedom. 6 months until forgetting. 6 months to create memories he wouldn't keep but she'd carry forever. They'd make every moment matter. Chapter 8. Blood and Starlight. The next months were stolen time, golden and ephemeral. Theron stopped running. Instead, he pulled Saren into his world completely, not as ward or student, but as something precious and equal. They worked side by side in the laboratory, hands brushing as they measured compounds. They read in the library until dawn painted the windows amber, his hand in her hair, her head on his shoulder. He taught her the languages he remembered, Latin, Greek, Old French. She taught him to laugh without sorrow, to accept joy without calculating its eventual cost. "Tell me something true," Saren said one night. They were on the conservatory roof, lying on blankets beneath the summer stars. This had become their sanctuary, the only place sunlight couldn't reach him. where the sky was vast and infinite above them. "I'm afraid," Theron said simply. "Every morning I wake and remember you. I'm afraid it's the last morning, that today's the day the curse decides 8 years are done. We have 4 months. Curses don't care about calendars." He turned his head to look at her, and in the starlight, his eyes were molten silver. "I'm memorizing you. Every freckle, every expression. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking, how you hum while you work. I'm trying to carve you so deeply into my mind that maybe something will survive. What if I could break the curse?" He smiled sadly. "Hundreds have tried. I've tried. It's woven into my existence. The only cure is remembering my original sin, and I can't remember that far back." "Then tell me what you do remember. Your earliest clear memory. Maybe there's a clue." Theron was quiet for a long moment, gaze distant. "I remember waking in a crypt. Pain, blood on my hands, not mine. A woman's voice saying, 'You've paid the price.' Then nothing. Just fragments. By the time I understood what I'd become, the details were already fading. Paid the price for what? I don't know. A deal? A curse? A punishment?" His jaw clenched. "All I know is that I wake every 8 years to a blank slate and the knowledge that I've forgotten people I loved. It's agony without context. Grief without memory." Saren rolled onto her side, propping herself up on one elbow. "What if the price was someone else's life? What if you became vampire to save someone, and the curse is punishment for loving them too much? Then I'm doomed to repeat the pattern, eternally loving people I can't keep, forgetting them, loving again." His hand found hers. "You see the cruelty? I'm cursed to have everything I cherish erased. Including you. Not erased. Changed." She laced their fingers together. "I'll still exist. Still know you. When you forget me, I'll tell you stories. Make you fall in love again. That's not fair to you. Let me decide what's fair." She leaned down, close enough to feel the coolness radiating from his skin. "Kiss me. Saren. You love me. I love you. We have 4 months. Stop wasting time on fear." Theron's control shattered. His hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her down, and his lips met hers with the desperation of a drowning man finding air. The kiss was cool and devastating, tasting of mint and old sorrow and new hope. His other hand tangled in her hair, and she felt his restraint warring with hunger, not for blood, but for connection, for mattering, for one person in 2 centuries remembering his face. When they finally broke apart, both were shaking. "I've wanted to do that for 2 years, Theron confessed, his voice raw. "I've wanted you to do that for longer." Saren traced his face with her fingertips, the sharp cheekbones, the 2 perfect features. "I'm not afraid of what you are. I'm not afraid of losing you. I'm only afraid of not trying. You're extraordinary. I'm stubborn." She kissed him again, softer this time. "And I'm yours for 4 more months. Then we'll figure out what comes after." They lay there beneath the stars, wrapped in each other, and Theron told her stories he'd read in his journals, other lives, other loves, other losses. And Saren memorized the sound of his voice, the weight of his arm around her waist, the way he said her name like a prayer. 4 months until the bargain ended. 4 months to create a love strong enough to survive forgetting. Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the garden below, a man in hunter's garb, his scarred face twisting with righteous fury. The hunters hadn't forgotten. And they were coming back. Chapter 9. Silver and Sacrifice. The second attack came with autumn. Saren woke to smoke and screaming Margot's voice, hoarse with terror. She ran from her room in her nightgown, bare feet slapping against cold stone. The manor's entrance hall was chaos. Fire spreading up the curtains, men in hunter's garb smashing through windows. More of them this time. 2 dozen. Maybe 3. Theron. Her scream was swallowed by the roar of flames. A hand grabbed her arm. "Margot," face streaked with soot. "The laboratory. He's trapped. They've sealed it with silver chains. And the fire." Saren didn't wait. She sprinted through the servants' corridors, smoke burning her lungs. The laboratory door was indeed wrapped in silver chains, glowing faintly with holy symbols. Beyond it, she heard Theron's roar of rage and pain. "Stand back!" she shouted. "You can't touch it." Margot panted behind her. "Silver will burn you too through the mark." Saren tore a tapestry from the wall, wrapping it around her hands. The mark on her wrist flared with agony as she grabbed the chains. But she held on, wrenching them apart with adrenaline-fueled strength. They snapped. The door exploded outward. Theron emerged like a storm, eyes crimson, fangs bared, face twisted with inhuman fury. Blood covered him, and she couldn't tell if it was his or theirs. He saw her, and for one terrifying instant, she thought he didn't recognize her. Then his eyes cleared. "Saren, get out. Now. Not without you. This isn't a negotiation." He grabbed her, moving with impossible speed, carrying her through the burning manor. Behind them, the hunters pursued, their leader's voice rising above the chaos. "Kill the vampire! Save the girl!" They burst into the conservatory. Theron set her down, whirling to face the doorway as hunters poured through. "Behind me," he commanded. "Theron, there are too many. I know." His voice was eerily calm. "That's why you're leaving." "I'm not." He grabbed her shoulders, and his eyes were silver again, beautiful and ancient and utterly final. 8 years ago, I promised to keep you safe. Let me keep that promise. Please. You'll die. I've died before. I'll do it again to protect you." He touched her face, gentle despite the carnage around them. "Remember me, Saren. Remember this. Remember that I chose you, even knowing I'd forget." No. We have 2 months left. We have time. We're out of time." He kissed her fierce and desperate. "And goodbye," then shoved her toward the conservatory's far exit. "Run." The hunters reached the doorway. Their leader held a sword silver, glowing with holy fire. Behind him, a mage chanted words that made the air itself burn. Saren ran 3 steps, then stopped. She wouldn't. Not after 8 years. Not after everything. "You want to break a curse?" she shouted at Theron. "Then remember why you were turned. Remember what you paid for. Remember." "I can't." His voice broke. "I've tried for 2 centuries. The memories are gone, Saren. I'm hollow. No." She walked back toward him, past him, placing herself between Theron and the hunters. The mark on her wrist blazed like a star. "You're not hollow. You're cursed to forget love, but not to stop feeling it. That's the cruelty. That's the punishment." The lead hunter raised his sword. "Girl, move. We're here to save you. I don't need saving from him. I need saving from you." She held up her wrist, showing the mark. "He gave me 8 years, taught me, protected me, loved me, and in 2 months, he'll forget all of it. That's his curse, to love people completely and lose them utterly." "Saren, please." Theron's voice was anguished. "No. You've spent 2 centuries running from this truth." She turned to face him, tears streaming. "You weren't cursed for killing. You were cursed for saving someone with forbidden magic. Someone you loved. Someone you gave your mortality for. The curse isn't punishment, it's insurance. You can never do it again because you can never remember why you did it the first time." Theron stared at her, and something shifted in his eyes, recognition, horror, grief. "Margaret," he whispered. "My sister. She was dying. I made a deal, my soul for her life. He staggered. "Oh God, I remember, the crypt, the blood. Hers, to seal the bargain. Mine, to pay the price. I killed her to save her." The air changed. The mark on Saren's wrist flared one final time, then faded to nothing. The bargain was broken. Theron collapsed to his knees, 2 centuries of memories crashing back like a wave. Saren caught him, holding him as he shook with the weight of everything he'd forgotten and lost. Behind them, the hunters hesitated. "It's over," Margot said from the doorway, her voice carrying authority. "The curse is broken. The bargain's fulfilled. Leave. Now." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the lead hunter lowered his sword. "This isn't finished," he said. "But tonight, we're satisfied." They withdrew, taking the fire and chaos with them. Saren held Theron as the dawn approached, as 200 years of love and loss and forgotten names finally came home. "I remember you," he whispered. "All 8 years. Everything. God, Saren, I remember." She kissed his forehead, his face, tasting salt and smoke. "Then we start from here. No more forgetting, no more running. Together? Together." As the first rays of sunlight touched the conservatory's glass roof, Theron pulled her into the shadows, and they held each other while the manor burned down around them, a funeral pyre for Manor and her, the curse, and a dawn for something new. Chapter 10. Ashes and Offerings. They saved what mattered. The journals. Margot insisted 2 centuries of forgotten lives, now memories instead of mystery. The laboratory equipment, Saren salvaged. Books, herbs, the essential tools of their trade. Everything else, they let burn. The manor had been a mausoleum. It was time for something living. The hunters didn't return. Word spread, Margot explained, of the curse breaking. The church considered it divine intervention. The hunter order considered it proof their work was done. Either way, they were left alone. What now? Saren asked 3 days later. They'd taken refuge in the underground chamber, the place where their bargain began. Theron was different now, no longer carrying the weight of forgetting. He moved with purpose instead of restraint. Now we choose. He took her hands. The curse is broken. I remember everything, including every person I failed, every love I lost to the forgetting. I remember Christopher's wedding vows, Alice's grandchildren's names, decades of people I loved and couldn't keep. His grip tightened. And I remember every moment with you. 8 years. Every lesson, every laugh, every time I wanted to kiss you and didn't. You're making up for that now, Saren said softly. They'd barely been apart since the fire. I'm trying. His smile was tentative, healing. But Saren, you need to understand what you're choosing. I'm still vampire, still immortal. If you stay with me, you'll age. I won't. Eventually you'll die. I know. She'd thought about nothing else for 3 days, but I'd rather have 50 years with you than an eternity alone. And who knows? Maybe we'll find a way to break that curse too. I'm not turning you. His voice hardened. I won't curse you with this existence. I'm not asking you to. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She cupped his face. But I'm asking you to stop deciding what I can handle. I'm 18, Theron. I've survived persecution, fire, hunters, and watching the person I love most forget everything. I can handle whatever comes next. You're certain? Completely. He kissed her, then slow and thorough and full of 200 years of learning how to love without the fear of losing it. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. We'll need a new home, Theron said practically. Margot's already found a townhouse in the city. Respectable, defensible, close to a university. A university. For you. I've taught you alchemy and medicine, but you deserve formal education, recognition, a life beyond being a vampire's companion. Saren's heart swelled. You'd let me do that? Let you? I insist. You're brilliant, Saren. The world should know it. He brushed hair from her face. Besides, I've remembered I have accounts. Investments spanning 2 centuries. We're obscenely wealthy. Might as well use it properly. Teaching positions? She guessed. For both of us. If you want, I can. Lecture at night. Chemistry, perhaps. Or history, I lived through most of it. His expression turned serious. I want to build something with you. Not a cage, a life. Equal partners. Partners, she repeated, testing the word. It felt right. Solid. Unless you'd prefer the term wife, eventually. Saren's breath caught. Are you? Not proposing. Not yet. You're 18. You should experience the world before binding yourself to a vampire. But his eyes were warm, hopeful. Ask me again in 5 years. I'll say yes. Promise? I remember everything now, Saren, including how to keep promises. He pulled her close, and she felt his heart slow, steady, present. I promise you 50 years of mornings, a lifetime of discoveries. And when the time comes, if you still want forever, we'll face that question together. Deal. They spent the rest of the day planning. The townhouse would have a laboratory, a library, a rooftop garden for the herbs that needed moonlight. Margot would come with them. She'd earned her place in their strange family. And Saren would enroll in the university's natural philosophy program under an assumed name. No one needed to know she'd been trained by an immortal. As evening fell, Theron took her to the conservatory's ruins. The fire had consumed most of it, but the oleander had survived impossibly, defiantly blooming among the ashes. Poison and medicine, he said, plucking a single flower. You taught me they're sisters, not opposites. You taught me first, then we taught each other. He tucked the bloom behind her ear. That's what we'll keep doing. Teaching, learning, growing, for as long as you want. Forever sounds good. Forever's complicated. But I'll take it. He kissed her forehead. Thank you, Saren Grey, for breaking my curse, for choosing me, for reminding me that immortality isn't about endless time, it's about finding someone who makes time matter. Saren leaned into him, breathing in his scent mint and old books and the faint metallic edge of what he was. Thank you for saving me, for teaching me, for forgetting me and still loving me enough to remember. They stood there in the ruins, wrapped in each other, as the moon rose over the ashes of his past. Tomorrow, they'd start building their future mortal and immortal, poison and medicine, two impossible creatures who defied curse and fire and fate. But tonight, they simply held each other while the stars came out. And for the first time in 2 centuries, Theron looked at the future without fear, because she'd given him something even immortality couldn't. A reason to remember. Chapter 11. Dawn's Promise. The townhouse in the city was sunlit and strange. Saren stood in what would be her laboratory, a converted solarium with glass walls facing east, and marveled at the brightness. After 8 years in the manor's perpetual twilight, the morning light felt almost indecent. You'll need curtains, Theron said from the doorway. Careful, to stay in the shadows, for my sake. Or I'll work mornings, and you'll work nights. We'll meet in the evenings. She turned to smile at him. Partnership, remember? I remember everything now. It's still miraculous. He ventured a step closer, testing the boundary between shadow and light. The university accepted your application. You start in 2 weeks. And you? Guest lecturer in chemistry. Night classes only, citing a medical condition. The department head was remarkably understanding once I mentioned a generous endowment. His smile was wry. Money helps smooth unusual requests. Saren crossed the room to him, standing in the threshold between light and dark, metaphor made literal. Are you happy? She asked quietly. Truly? He paused, considering. I'm healing. 200 years of grief is a lot to process, even with all memories restored. Some nights I wake reaching for people who've been dead for decades. I mourn Christopher and Alice and dozens of others. But yes, Saren, I'm happy, because I finally understand what I've been missing. What's that? Hope? You gave me hope that this time, love doesn't have to end in forgetting. He pulled her fully into the shadows, into his arms. I'm terrified of losing you eventually, time or illness or accident, but at least I'll remember. I'll carry you forever, even when you're gone. Morbid, she teased gently. Realistic. I'm vampire, darling. Death follows me. But his hold tightened. Still. 50 years with you, conscious of every moment, is worth 1,000 lived in fog. Thank you for that gift. Thank you for letting me give it. They stood there, wrapped in shadows and each other, until Margot called from downstairs about furniture deliveries and practical matters. Real life, Saren thought. They were building a real life, complicated and mortal and precious. That evening, Theron took her to the university library. It was after hours, empty except for a night guard who knew to ignore the chemistry professor's odd schedule. Theron led her through the stacks to a section marked rare texts. Alchemy and natural philosophy. I've been researching, he said, pulling down a leather-bound volume. The curse is broken, but I'm still vampire, still immortal. You're not. We've discussed this. I know. You're not ready to consider turning. I respect that. But what if there are other options? He opened the book, showing her hand-drawn diagrams of plants, minerals, compounds. Life extension without vampirism. Alchemical formulas designed to slow aging, preserve vitality. Nothing that guarantees immortality, but perhaps we could give ourselves more time. Together. Saren studied the pages, her mind already racing through compounds and theories. These would take years to test safely. Decades. We have decades. He smiled. You'll age, yes, but maybe we can slow it enough that 50 years becomes 70, 80. Every year is precious. You'd really spend decades researching just to give us more time? I'd spend centuries. But yes, decades will do for a start. He closed the book, taking her hands. Saren, I've lost 200 years to forgetting. I won't lose a single moment with you to resignation. If there's a way to keep you beside me longer without forcing vampirism on you, I'll find it. Her eyes stung with tears. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Give me time. I have 200 years of wooing to make up for. She kissed him there between the dusty stacks, tasting hope and determination. Partners, she murmured against his lips. Partners, he agreed. In alchemy, in life, in defying death as long as we possibly can. They spent the rest of the night poring over texts, making notes, planning experiments. By dawn, they had a research protocol, sketched out, conservative, careful, built on 8 years of working together. It would take time. It might fail. But they had time now, and the freedom to try. As the sun rose, Theron retreated to his chambers. The basement converted into comfortable quarters, light-proof and cool. Saren stood at her laboratory window, watching the city wake, and thought about the girl she'd been 8 years ago. 10 years old, fleeing persecution, finding refuge in darkness. Now she stood in sunlight, educated and free, partnered with an immortal who remembered her name and everything it meant. The bargain had been for 8 years. They'd been given forever, or as close to it as two impossible creatures could claim. She touched the mark on her wrist, now just a scar, faded but present. A reminder that some bargains break you open just to let the light in. Smiling, Saren began unpacking her laboratory equipment. They had work to do. Chapter 12. Epilogue, Blood, and Starlight. 53 years later, the rooftop garden bloomed impossibly in October moonlight. Saren sat among the oleander and wolfsbane, her hair silver now, her hands marked with age's careful calligraphy. She was 71 years old, and she'd never felt more alive. The alchemy had worked not immortality, but preservation. She'd outlived her peers by decades. Her mind sharp, her body strong enough for the work she loved, strong enough for him. Theron emerged from the house, moving with the same inhuman grace he'd had at 32. He'd looked exactly the same for 53 years while she'd accumulated wrinkles and silver hair and the weight of a life fully lived. He'd never once looked at her with anything but devotion. "The university wants to publish our latest paper," he said, settling beside her. "The life extension formulas, they're calling it revolutionary. They'd call it heresy if they knew who'd helped develop it." She leaned against him, breathing in his unchanged scent. "How does it feel, being famous?" "Terrifying. But I have an excellent publicist." He kissed her temple. "You were brilliant in the lecture today." The students were enthralled. "They're young, easily impressed. You've trained 3 generations of physicians, Saren. You've saved thousands of lives. That's not easily impressed, that's earned admiration." She smiled, lacing her fingers through his. The mark on her wrist had faded to near invisibility, but she could still feel it, sometimes a phantom warmth when they touched. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, dangerous words, "about the future. Our future." She turned to face him. "I'm 71. The alchemy has given us extra time, but eventually biology wins. Maybe 10 more years. Maybe 20 if we're lucky." Theron's expression shuddered. "I know. And I've been thinking about what you offered me 50 years ago. The question you said we'd face together." His hand tightened on hers. "Saren, I want to try." The words came out steady, certain. "Not now. Maybe not for another decade. But when the time comes when I'm truly failing, I want you to turn me. I want forever with you, Theron. However complicated forever is." For a long moment he simply stared at her. Then, "You're certain?" I've always said I wanted to experience mortality fully. And I have. 53 years of growing, aging, living. I've taught, traveled, loved. I've built a legacy. But I'm not done. There's still so much to discover, and I want to discover it with you." She cupped his face. "Turn me. When the time comes. Let me stay. It will hurt. The transformation is agony. I know. You'll be cursed with immortality, endless time, watching everyone you know die. Except you. I'll have you." She smiled. "That's enough." Theron pulled her close, and she felt the tremor in his hands, emotion he rarely showed. "I thought I'd lose you eventually. Thought I'd have to watch you fade and carry the memory alone. You will have to carry the memories, plural, centuries of them. But I'll be there to make new ones." She kissed him softly. "Forever, Theron. Like you promised. 53 years ago. Partners, he whispered. "In this life and the next." They sat there until the moon set, planning a future that stretched beyond mortality. And when dawn approached, they retreated together, not into separate rooms, but into their shared chambers, curtains drawn against the light. Saren slept in his arms, her breathing steady, mortal still, but not for always. And Theron held her with infinite gentleness, counting each heartbeat like the treasures they were, knowing that someday, years from now, he'd hear her heart go silent only to wake again as something new. The girl who'd traded her future for his past, the woman who'd become his forever. Outside, the oleander bloomed poison and medicine, death and life, Thorns wrapped around beauty, and in the darkness, two impossible creatures rested, wrapped in love that had survived curse and time and the cruel spaces between remembering and forgetting. They'd have forever to explore those spaces now, together.